Being produced at the same time as the introduction of colour television would lead the show Late Night Horror to be the first regularly broadcasted colour series to be recorded by the BBC. 6 episodes were shown overall in 1968, and following a staggered repeat a little while later, it vanished like many of its other contemporaries. In 2016, what was nothing short of a miracle happened when a print of one of the episodes appeared on eBay. It was safely acquired for preservation and archiving. Sadly, the print was known to be in existence for some time, having previously been identified back in 1984, where a private collector ended up getting the episode. It is thought that it suffered many issues related in regards to improper care of this kind of material over the 32 years in between identification and recovery. Needless to say, restoration proved to be a challenge. It was released in 2022 and acted as a disc of bonus audio-visual contents to a book written by Colin Cutler and Steve Rogers that provides a comprehensive history on the production and other details for the show. In my documentaries that I create and upload, I have talked about late night horror a fair bit, particularly my newest one currently, Barnabas Lives, in which I detail 2 of the episodes. I would like to do a full one on this particular program, however, because so little of it exists, that sadly isn't really possible. So here I'm opting to do a bit of a hybrid of both one and a book and DVD review as a 2-part finale to the Pitch Skull Black 10th anniversary video series. Here I shall be reviewing the book and doing a general overview of the series, and next time I'll be detailing the title sequence, reviewing the surviving episode, and detailing the critical reception to the show. Without further ado, let us begin. So here is the front cover of the book. We have Late Night Horror, a complete guide to the BBC horror series, the name of the surviving episode, The Corpse Can't Play, spine-tingling terror with a BBC play lost for 40 years, and the Kaleidoscope logo. A little bit of a confusing thing to put here, because the episode itself was screened in 1968, and with this being released in 2022, that would mean that the episode was celebrating, or would be celebrating, its 54th anniversary. However, I am assuming that this is in reference to the time gap in between the first identification of the episode in 1984 and the release of it in 2022. For the cover art itself, we have a TV set on a dresser with this green wallpaper in the background, with these creepy menacing hands kind of stretching over it. Part of me wants to say this is photoshopped from Nosferatu, because there was this kind of shot in that film of where Count Orlok's, if that was his name, hands were kind of reaching over a female character in that film. So that could be photoshopped from that, or I'm just making a connection that there isn't. So then for the main kind of center cover art, we have a nicely done photoshopped cover and kind of montage from The Corpse Can Play, set against the background of the Jarman's family home entrance with the front door there. We have a photoshopped montage of 4 of the other kids that are at the party. Ronnie Jarman there, Mrs. Jarman, Ronnie's mother, and then we have Simon Potter there. Really nice kind of Photoshop work on this cover, I would have said. And we have the spine, and then we have the back. Late Night Horror. This book gives a detailed insight into the making of late night horror. The DVD contains the only surviving episode, The Corpse Can't Play, plus extras, bought on eBay and restored from monochrome back into full colour. This terrifying tale is not for the squeamish. Kaleidoscope logo. For more information on archive holdings, episode guides, and cast listings on the history of British television, please visit www.tvbrain.info and the barcode. And we have 6 images from the episode kind of decorating the back of the book. Really nice kind of cover art, and with the exception of the spine being blank, I think they did a really good job with the external presentation of it. So if we were to open up the book, we have the DVD disc that just comes like this. This contains the surviving episode, The Corpse Can't Play, restored into colour. The main feature and option for the watching of this is the colour version of the episode. But for 3 bonus features, we have the unrestored monochrome print of The Corpse Can't Play that was found, restoring the episode, and a surviving series introduction / trailer hosted by Valentine Dahl that was broadcasted a couple hours before the very first episode of the show, with this surviving one being the 3rd. We have various copyright bits and pieces. So then we have Late Night Horror, a comprehensive guide to the 1968 BBC TV anthology series by Colin Cutler and Steve Rogers, with additional material by Johnny Mains and Jonathan Cooley. And then we have the indexing, acknowledgements, introduction, Late Night Horror, origins and production development, a indexing of the 6 episodes that were transmitted, and then we have a section on unused stories and scripts for the series, references and select bibliography, about the restoration by Jonathan Cooley, and John Burke, a biography by Johnny Mains. And then there we have acknowledgements. This book overall runs to 109 pages long, and there's the back of it there. Off the bat, I'm just going to say that the written content of this book is absolutely fantastic and provides a brilliant insight to the series. The volume opens with acknowledgements, an introduction, and then a 15-page look at the origins and developments of the series. Following this, we get individual sections on all 6 episodes that were transmitted, which includes a full summary and plot write-out of the designated instalment, production details, broadcast, critical reception, archive status, cast, crew, and technical aspects to do with the production. As for what was transmitted in regards to the episodes, the first was No Such Thing as a Vampire, based on Richard Matheson's story of the same name. This was a gothic murder mystery set in Transylvania, and the characters are quite suspicious about vampires. Dark Shadows creator Dan Curtis would also make a TV anthology film entitled Dead of Night that also adapts this story. This latter version is in existence, and this TV film was one from the 70s, not to be confused with the famed 1940s anthology film from the UK. William and Mary followed, a tale that features a couple where the husband is about to die, but there is insistence that his brain can be kept alive technologically. It was adapted by Roald Dahl from his own story. Surviving screen representations by way of the shows Way Out and Tales of the Unexpected can be viewed. About the halfway mark was The Corpse Can't Play, adapted from John Burke's story Party Games. As for a synopsis in this particular section of the review, let's just say there's a birthday party and it showcases that adults aren't the only kinds of humans that are mentally disturbed. This was the episode that was recovered. It survives as a 16mm monochrome print, something that was presumably made for overseas sales as the installment was created on 625 colour videotape originally. The Triumph of Death made for episode 4, with Claire Bloom as Amelia Lauren, whom had previously starred in the Robert Wise film The Haunting, one of my personal favourites. Not to mention, for Doctor Who fans, it it also starred Robert James as a reverend. This to me appears to have been quite a vivid and ambitious ghost story for the series, with phantasms of children and bloodied handprints appearing on walls. To my knowledge, this has been the only screen adaptation of author H. Russell Wakefield, and would probably be my most wanted to be returned piece of missing television. The penultimate chapter was The Bells of Hell, an adaptation of the story Ringing the Changes from Robert Aikman. Two honeymooners decide to stay at an inn in East Anglia. All seems to be very lonely here, other than the church bell that will not stop ringing. However, what will happen when the pealing stops? This one is near enough tied with the previous one as my most wanted piece of missing TV to be returned, which was just further perpetuated by me recently reading the original source story and just thinking it was like absolutely amazing, 10 out of 10 kind of stuff. The series came to a close with an adaptation of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's The Curse of Lady Sannox, with skilled adapter Richard Hawksworth bringing us a 25-minute piece that would be titled The Kiss of Blood. The story is a fairly standard Victorian set scenario of the macabre from what I can tell, with the title character having an affair with an esteemed surgeon. As hinted at earlier, the show was repeated with 3 episodes in 1969 and another 3 in 1970. It would also appear that production goes back to 1966. In the book's 16-page feature on the production, development and creation of the show, it very well transcribes the process of creating it in regards to what the story selection phase was like. Alongside this, it also details stories that were considered but not made for the series. Early on, there seems to have been an idea that there would have been 7 episodes, not 6. When the shorter overall runtime became apparent, an adaptation of Man's Size in Marble by Edith Nesbit appeared to become a placeholder in case Richard Davis, showrunner, wouldn't be able to acquire the rights to William and Mary and or Ringing the Changes. There appears to be a slight bit of conflict within the book, as it mentions that it is unknown why this story was dropped, but cites that it may have been too similar in setting to a couple of the other episodes that were selected and were going to be made. In consideration of what the opening section states, to me it would appear to have been merely a placeholder script should the rights to one or the other of the 2 just mentioned did not get cleared and or acquired. A draft script for this unmade adaptation of Man's Size in Marble was discovered to still be in existence, and a plot summary of the would-be episode was written and included. At a very early point for the creation of the show, a script was going around titled The Inframen by Roger Parks. It had apparently originally been considered for the 2nd series of Out of the Unknown, which was in production at the time, but made its way to Richard Davis, who appeared to have been interested in cutting the piece down to a 25-minute feature. This proved to be too complex of a process, as the story would have been completely restructured and redeveloped for the shorter runtime. However, the book here once again does provide a plot summary of this would-be episode. Parks would later on be script editor for Out of the Unknown Series 4, but The Inframen was not included. This is probably because of an apparent stigma about material being sourced from a role such as Rogers. Interestingly enough though, Michael J. Bird's To Lay a Ghost from this season utilises a core story element of photography like what Parks' unused script would have done. New writings in Horror and the Supernatural 2, edited by David A. Sutton, published in 1972, contains a story by the recent, at the time, script editor called Inframan that uses many of the same plot elements of the unmade screenplay. Richard apparently had interests in including The Last Seance by Agatha Christie, but couldn't do so due to copyright issues. In 1968, Davis would have his first anthology book published, being Tandem Horror 2. It contained 2 stories by author Ramsey Campbell titled The Stocking and Reply Guaranteed. Apparently the showrunner for Late Night Horror thought that a second series was possible given the success of production of the first run, and these are the only 2 known stories that were highlighted as possibly being made for this next run. Compiling together my knowledge of the show and my examination of this volume, I would say that the programme was a daring and experimental series, with it not being afraid to show off levels of violence that were more akin to what you may see on the big screen. Whereas I'm aware that other episodes of the programme had their moments, like the kiss of blood having blood spurt out of somebody's face during the climax, I am uncertain overall as to how violent these other ones got, and it could be definite to say that the existing episode was the most violent. Along with this aspect, it also appeared to have enjoyed toying around with the fact that it was a colour TV show, with William and Mary apparently having what would have been a kaleidoscopically lit sequence of the surgery, and the triumph of death having bloodied handprints manifesting at one point. I would also say that it could very well be considered as an experimental horror show, because of what I have detailed just now, and also because of the fact that it did not stick to one brand of the genre, with things like supernatural, medical, contemporary, psychological and gothic strains of horror being found and scattered throughout. It was definitely not a linear brand and package of one type of the genre, unlike many of the time contemporaries such as mystery and imagination, which tended to settle with gothic horror. This in turn makes it stand out quite significantly in the history of these kinds of shows for me. Unfortunately, however, with how obscure it is, even for the time, as it was broadcasted very late and most episodes didn't surpass the 1 million viewer mark, that is pretty much all the programme is now, a piece of history, with a fair bit to examine but nowhere near as much as we could have. Luckily, however, we do have one surviving episode and this book to look back on. The Corpse Camp play I would personally rate at about a 9 out of 10 currently, with the book's written content scoring a 10 out of 10 probably, as I think it's extremely well done and structured, with no real issues to be found. Unfortunately, however, I am inclined to give the overall package somewhere around a 7 out of 10. This rating does seem a bit harsh to myself also, but there are numerous issues, not with the contents, but overall technicalities, presentational and erroneous things to do with the overall product. Exterior wise, I don't have much to say or complain about, and I think they did a really good job overall for the cover, with a very clean Photoshop montage taking centre stage on the cover. The spine has nothing on it and it's just black. Don't think I really need to say any more than that. The back is well done, however, with a nice photo montage and a short piece about what the item is. Now for the interior, and depending on which copy you get, you could be off to a bad start. Fortunately, I did not have this on mine, and maybe there is an earlier printing run that was the only one to have the following, but some people received their copy with a very significant piece of staining to the edge of the opening page. Going deeper into my copy, however, I noticed some things. On page 38, there are these weird boxes kind of peppered throughout the paragraph, plus even more in bits on page 50. Then going to pages 89 and 90, the font starts giving up on life by the looks of it. The DVD as well doesn't have any holder for it or some form of a plastic keep case. It's just placed into a sleeve and into the book, floating freely. To be honest, I probably will at some point get a custom case for this made, but still not very good packaging. All of this could be down to issues of budget, as I'm aware that things like this have to have funding and various things put into them. But sadly, the overall product just feels a bit lazy and cheaply put together, despite the content of itself being absolutely outstanding. Luckily, Kaleidoscope seems to have improved a bit with their recent Sir Arthur Conan Doyle mystery and adventure book, which is similarly priced to this one on their site, with that being about 26 and this being 24. I ended up paying £20 for my copy on eBay, and despite my misgivings with the packaging, I would still say it was worth it. I have thoroughly enjoyed reading and absorbing this book, and I would definitely say it is one of my all-time favourite volumes in my collection. If this sounds like something that interests you, then I would highly recommend buying it.